these are really just databases, and you can connect to them with anything. So you really have a lot of citizen ETL going, forming up these databases, and then they can connect to that and another source and query them together. And so they're an interesting idea. I think they're only in preview and in premium right now. Yeah, there you go. Included with Power BI premium capacities and premium per user. But it really is just SQL out there. They give a little when to use guidance down here. I haven't read this part yet. I'm kind of curious about this, but I guess pros, you could argue it's a step up from them doing it in Excel and connecting straight to Excel. I don't know. What I'm kind of curious about their group's reaction to this, because I see some furrowed brows out there. I see some concern, consternation, or excitement, maybe one or the other. Okay, yeah. See, the business users are excited. The IT people are like, oh no. I got more data to manage. And well, it is, you're right. These may be included. Wait, let me go back to that web page. I'm sorry. That cost may be included with your Power BI premium license, but it probably counts against your storage. Yeah, I bet you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, for storage and egress, right? Like if I create a data mart, right, and it's a SQL database that's living in the cloud, and then somebody else tries to connect to that against it, that's certainly going to affect our Azure cost, isn't it?
I bet you're right. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Someone connects to it and starts sucking out all that data for some other ETL or,
yeah,
I don't know. Egress cost, yeah.
That data coming out. Ingress would be data going in.
Okay, so that's not Microsoft's term.
No, no,
Or the way that the model for charging.
no,
Yeah.
no. The way that
For your capacity and volume and so forth.
I believe the way that Microsoft charges for databases called a DTU, database transaction unit, for a database in the cloud. And so that's why I'm thinking whenever you're issuing queries against it, it's running transactions there. So I would think that you're going to be accruing costs. And in addition, you've got the storage
On the
costs.
total storage you can have. I know there's a limitation.
Right,
For
yeah.
workspace, so we talked about IT medic.
Yeah, yeah. But luckily, it's only a premium per user thing now, so not everybody would be provisioning.
I haven't really explored the limits on this. I really feel like we need a whole presentation on data marts, and maybe I should have had that prepared, but future meeting.
That's an interesting.
Okay.
There,
Yeah, okay. There you go. Good idea. Yeah, there you go.
Differences between marks.
Yep, there you go. That's exactly what we're talking about. We've had sets forever, and we'll continue to have sets for sure.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, flows were reusable data prep for data sets or marts. It really is kind of like just caching your data from wherever you're getting it from into a more accessible place. That's what I think of as data flows. Great, yeah, and great for systems that you want to be very sensitive about how frequently does it get accessed. Many systems, business critical systems, are still like, hey, don't come and query just any old thing. You could damage the operations and transactions going in and out. So they can be good for that. It comes and gets that data once to be reused by all these different other cases. Yeah. Citizen data warehousing, I guess. External sharing. They are more accessible, which is good, because before, like, it was sort of trapped in Power BI. Now, if you put it into a data mart, it kind of opens up to anything that connects to SQL Server. So
One of the
it does
things that
liberate.
I loved about data flows is that you can have your data flows live in ADLS, which is Azure Data Lake, right? So your data flow, even though it's in the Power BI service, you can have it set up so that it's just living in a data lake, Azure Data Lake.
Which is then your IT group.
Exactly, the cloud structure. Yep, that'd be what it is.
Absolutely, it's in the cloud, and if a data lake is really just kind of a glorified file system, so it looks like if you go into it and you look at it, it looks like going into File Explorer on your desktop, right? But there's the storage costs for data lake are a lot cheaper than, you know, a SQL database or other type of storage. I guess one of the things that I could see as an advantage to the data mart is that, you know, you could do some advanced kind of ETL type stuff where in Power BI right now, in order to do like an incremental load of data, like I don't want to overwrite my data. I want to keep the history of it and just write new rows in. You have to have a premium to do that, I believe.
I'm doing that.
And so I could see,
The parameters.
yeah,
Set the start and the stop so that refresh is not 5 to 10 hours at night. It's 10 minutes.
right, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So you may be able to get, and well, again, this is a premium or a premium per user thing, so I don't know what the advantage is, but I can see how you could do some advanced ETL type stuff like that with a data mart since it's living in a SQL database.
It's not a high res image. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was just kind of embedded in the website. So never mind on that deal. I was going to try to blow up that, see if it was helpful, but this link has some interesting comparing data flows and data marts. You're right, though. And conceptually, they're kind of similar in that, like one was just dropping it into a cloud, like the cloud table storage, and then this is dropping it into a SQL server. But it's, I think it's going to be a very popular feature. I do, yeah. And then I think, yeah, the IT people of the world like need to start making a plan now. Like, are we going to allow this to happen or not? But I know there's not as many of those in this room. But yeah, it's something I'm telling my IT people about. Like, make a plan. Do you want to allow this or don't you? Because, yeah. But it is cool because Power Query is a great technology, and for a long time it's been very much like kind of limited into like, well, you can use it in Power BI. It's this big funnel that will take data from anywhere and stick it into Power BI. Now it's getting more possible outputs. They technically still live in the Power BI service. I think that's what Microsoft didn't want to give up. They wanted to get all your data into the Microsoft cloud. That's why it's a giant funnel or a corral, if you will, or whatever. Like, going to make things all go into the same place. So now you can put it in SQL Server, but it's still living in their cloud. So I guess it should be covered under your cost, but you're right. I'm curious about how usage works, and SQL Server storage will tend to be much larger when it's stored physically on disk than the Power BI data sets will. They're very compressed and optimized to get small and live on your desktop. Whereas usually with SQL Server, it is stored in a row storage by default. I don't know if they've changed anything about that on data marts, but it'll tend to be 7 to 10 times larger is what the sizes will be. So per your data set. Be curious to see how that works out. Okay, great. Well, that's data marts. Now you're aware of them, and maybe it's funny they just drew this little Power BI picture on it. I mean, they should come up with a new icon that shows a cylinder and then on top of Power BI. We talked about the paginated report, so we don't have to go back over that again. I did want to show, and yeah, Mohammed, if you're online, I don't mean to steal your thunder, but because our audio has been poor, I was going to allow Mohammed, my team member, put this demo together, and I was going to let him share it, but our audio situation is so bad, I'm going to do it. I'm sorry. I'm totally steal your thunder, but give you credit. Hopefully that's okay.
Yeah, not a problem.
The way. So the idea, yeah, no, I don't know. I'm sorry, this is like a browser, I don't know, default browser screen. Who knows what that scary stuff is? They made a new feature where you can, when you publish apps, you can say, I want this audience in my app to get access to these reports and like subsets of reports. Am I saying that right? Okay, cool. Let's see. Do I have workspace access? Oh, okay. I don't have access in that particular workspace, but I can show it even from here. Like if I say create app, this is what the experience looks like. If you've ever made an app before, this will be fairly familiar. You give it a name, you give it a description. Just testing my multi-audience. And
Brent,
you can give it a color and a logo that'll show in the upper left-hand corner and in the navigation menu. All that's great. What is different is the next screen where now you see this and it's like, well, what do you mean add content? So first you start adding content and I can pick the reports I want to see. I probably shouldn't have picked, this is an old workspace, so you can ignore it. But, and then, yeah, in fact, let me add 2 reports here. They look too similar. But I can start adding audiences and I can say, okay, now this particular audience is supposed to get, there's one called LWM test, and that's one audience. And I'll say that could be a specific number of people. And I can, what can I check boxes on and off here? And I can say, I want you to hide this one and show this one for this audience, or vice versa in the different audiences. The upshot of that is when they get to an experience like that, yeah, I'll just navigate away. I was just there, multi-audience. Oh, thank you. I didn't expect the yellow color. I think that threw me off. Where it's actually showing these different audiences across the top. And that's one thing we were still kind of testing and a little surprised by. It seemed like even if I wasn't a member of an audience, I could see that it was up here, and if I clicked on it, I would get a message that said, oh, you don't actually have access to it. So, but you can see, hopefully I'm getting like here, I'm just getting the corporate spending report, where under opportunity analysis, I'm seeing just opportunity analysis and so forth, where some people might be part of the all team and get to see all of the things. They see the AI report, the opportunity report, the corporate spending report, the regional sales sample. So they basically see all 4. Yeah, I still want to kind of know for sure, like, can I hide these things so that if I'm only on one team, I only see what I'm supposed to see and, you know, don't know that there are other audiences. It's always kind of bad to show them stuff and be like, it's here, you just don't have access to it. They'll just ask for access to it. So yeah, anyway, but one thing that I noticed you can't do, you cannot like subdivide these pages necessarily and say, okay, I want this audience to have access to opportunity overview, but not the detail, and change it on for a different audience. I've had a couple of situations where people wanted to do that, and they were actually maintaining 2 copies of the Power BI report with some had hidden pages and some had visible pages, and they would publish them both. So we thought this might solve their problem, and it kind of does, but with the little extra effort. Not right out of the box. With some extra effort, though, we kind of got them. A little extra effort, we got them where they want to go. Anyway, multi-audience app publishing. And I'll just do one more, and then we'll get into some challenges. Let's see. Oh, yeah, the metrics. I just wanted to show this picture of it, kind of what the metrics look like. Like they have this little pink icon that looks like a trophy. This project may be going for a certain amount of 20% completion rate, and then you can just draw a quick graph. And it's even like it has this icon here in the navigation menu, the trophy, trying to just elevate those key like corporate KPIs even out of reports and up all the way into the Power BI service level. If you define them enough, they can even look like this, where you can kind of like, okay, here's our corporate metrics, here's who's responsible for them, what's their status and what's their value. So I have a feeling they could be really useful. I think you just have to kind of go into the idea of like, we're going to live within the limitations of what metrics can provide us. Because of course, you know, customers will start to ask, okay, generate email revenue is behind. Why, right? And I think you probably can make them, okay, click on that and I get into a Power BI report, show me more details. But the metric itself won't track that. It'll just track 328, 500, you know, but I do think it is a way that it tracks it over time and can show sort of like a baseline versus how have we been tracking on this. So this needs a presentation too. So anybody wants to do a presentation on metrics, we'd love to have you present sometime. So. Well, those are big themes going on in the Power BI service. And things to kind of watch for in the next, let's say in 2023, you'll see more announcements about metrics and data marts and things like that. So that way, when you see them, you'll kind of have some like, oh, I know roughly what that is, what that's about. Yeah, okay, let's go into, I didn't really put a good slide in here for this, but let's go into our challenges. This is, yeah, really kind of collaborative time. If you're willing to, I would really appreciate it if you'd be willing to come up and kind of share what the challenge is so people on the phone could hear you. Anybody willing to lead us off? I know that's a big ask, but kind of start off the hot seat with, but we get to deal with your challenge first. Nobody has any Power BI challenges. I worry this would happen. I know someone's got one written down. Do you have one, Jeremy?
I mean, yeah, I've got plenty that I can bring up.
I'm sorry, did you have one, Chris?
Yeah, I got
Okay.
one. I can.
Okay, yeah, if you wouldn't mind, that way I can bring the speaker to you if you want, but I think it might be nicer for everybody.
Yeah. So we use a lot of different hierarchies for a lot of our reporting. And all of our hierarchies, because we want to make stuff difficult on ourselves, are ragged hierarchies, where the leaf level is at a different level at different parts in the hierarchy, and similar business units that we may want to compare are at different spots, different levels of a hierarchy. So understanding how to manage that so that you can build visuals off of units you want to compare, or structure your hierarchy so you can deal with the fact that it is a ragged hierarchy.
You don't control the creation of the hierarchy.
Yes.
So you're trying to compare like business unit A, I don't know, well, the business unit A might be at different points.
Yeah, there might be 3 levels down, but B might be 4 levels down, but
One might be like 8 levels down.
Not like some of you are sharing this challenge. So
yeah, we're all in the same department, so I know the same thing.
Yeah. Thoughts from.
So, I mean, essentially what you're dealing with is a data modeling issues, right? Like, I don't know if this is going to be an issue that Power BI itself will be able to handle for you. One of the things that I'm going to post in the chat here, I'm an acolyte of dimensional modeling, Kimball, dimensional modeling. I know that there's other approaches, the hub and spoke modeling approach or whatever. But Kimball has a pretty elegant solution to dealing with ragged hierarchies that basically involves creating a bridge table. So I'm going to post a link to something that he wrote about this, and maybe you guys will be able to take that and run with it. But again, I think that this issue of dealing with ragged hierarchies, something that is very common in business. And again, I don't know if it's something that any particular tool is going to be able to do for you. It's going to be a data modeling thing that you have to do.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah. But I like what Jeremy said. It sounds like a data modeling challenge. And I wonder if, are you allowed to like reshape the data as it comes in, even though you can't set the hierarchy? Can you kind of?
Yeah. That's kind of what you're doing right now. You're doing a lot of transformation.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, nice. Okay, great. Yeah, that works good. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. That's what I don't know exactly, how, like, to describe how, it sounds like it would probably be like inserting levels of the hierarchy to sort of fill in what's missing in the raggedness, maybe, or maybe inserting parents. Somehow reshaping it where they look more like each other. Yeah.
Or basically just see what you need to do and based on those units, do that kind of,
Okay, yeah.
kind of prepare the data.
I'll just do it kind of beforehand, like.
So probably, first of all, what you were asking is how to like deal with this more general.
Yeah. So there's probably not a
Right.
overall solution. It's more of you would have to do it based on what you're specifically trying to solve for each case.
It could be, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about that.
Okay, yeah, I'll put that link, thanks for putting that in there, Jeremy.
Oh, sure.
I can pull that up. I was just thinking of an example. One thing I have seen people do when they need to traverse hierarchies more I don't know, sometimes it makes it easier to build like a path. There's a function in Max called path that you can like create a field that looks like this. Well, for that particular hierarchy would look like that. And sometimes like doing that with like a contains map functions can sometimes get those mappings easier. I'm not totally sure. I'm sorry for folks on the phone. I'll just bring the speakerphone back here. But not totally sure if that's going to solve, like you said, is a general solution. I don't know. But that was helpful with row level security, where we wanted the person at level C to be able to look at level D, and then the person at level B to be able to see C and D and so forth. That became useful for that. Jeremy, so I'm going to open up your link here. I had it. Yeah. There you go. He even lets you build up a build up a little table here if you need to. So there you go. Huh. Well, yeah, this does look like for future reading. I agree.
Yeah.
He writes some nice SQL here. Yeah, it's good though.
Yeah, that's gonna be one where it's gonna be a data modeling thing.
Okay.
And so that's, get your engineering team on the horn and say, look, we're having this issue. This is a possible approach I think that we could take to solving it.
Especially if y'all are already having to spend a lot of time, dealing with the shape of the data. Maybe they could help create a view or something that did this and maybe made it easier. A database view or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, this Kimball guy, he's kind of the guy he helped to popularize the data warehouse. Let's put it that way. And so he wrote several books trying to solve lots of data warehouse problems, including the data warehouse toolkit. So kind of the
Highly recommend.
The Bible
if you don't have the
data warehousing. Yeah.
He absolutely addresses ragged hierarchies. specifically.
recursive
So,
records.
A great reference tool for anybody working in data.
Of course, my interest is piqued, and I'd love to dive into the details on that. But those are some possible ideas on that. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chris. You broke the ice. Thank you very much. Anybody else having other Power BI challenges?
I think the challenge that, just because I'm still fairly much a novice, I mean, I've been working for a few months in Power BI.
Yeah.
It's the challenge is not so much the visualization. It's obviously it's the data structure. It's how to get the data sound and correct efficiently. So it's just really what are some good efficient habits to have when you're pulling in data. The most data we're pulling from is going to be either tables or Excel.
Okay.
So it's not so much going out, tapping in other databases or anything like that. It's already going to be in a static form. For the
Okay.
most part. So just kind of
Yeah.
rules of thumb. I mean, I know that's
Great.
very
No, it's
vague,
great,
but
yeah.
it's obviously it's the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have it set up right to begin with, the tools aren't going to help.
Yes. Yes. Now, one clarification on that. Were you saying that you're pulling mostly from like file sources and not as much from databases that have like a SQL server would know this is a date field, and so when you load it in Power BI, it's going to come across as a
Right.
date field.
Yeah, these are SQL tables. I mean,
Okay,
they're-
they are.
they're-
Okay, good. Okay.
At the bank, we got numerous tables we're pulling
Okay.
data in from and then obviously doing visualization and analysis on data from different sources.
And we're doing mostly Oracle databases.
Okay.
Oracle SQL, which I know is a little bit of a
A little different.
little slightly different, but very
Understand.
similar.
Please, yeah. Yeah,
over
come
here.
over here, you speak in that.
Yeah, so we can restate. So I mean,
Yeah, good idea.
just to make sure that we got the question right. So it's, what are some good habits to get into in terms of when we're pulling data in and doing analysis and creating a solution, basically? Okay.
Structuring it once you're fully in, structuring it in a way, or
We're structuring it.
or maybe ahead of
Yeah.
time. So
Okay.
it's one thing we structure ahead of time.
Red lights,
Then consume it in.
Yeah.
Or do we do it after the fact? And then what are some good
Yeah, absolutely.
policies to have.
Absolutely. So, in terms of structuring the data or what we may call modeling the data, what I would highly recommend, and this is kind of another one of those things with data marts. Normally, a data mart is a highly curated data set that has all of the relationships predefined. I pull that in. I don't have to worry about, I pulled from this SQL table and I pulled from this file. Now I need to create these relationships. That normally you don't have to deal with that. But if you are having to deal with that, the recommendation is that you create a star schema. I don't know how many are familiar with star schema. Yeah, okay. That's best practices. So that would be, habit number one, as far as whenever you're creating, if you're having to create relationships in your Power BI desktop file, making sure that you're following that kind of star schema approach. That'll be good, not just for making sure that you're getting the results that you expect, but also for performance reasons.
So is your recommendation generally to have the data as much as you can already transformed and in the form you want when you're going into Power BI rather than doing those transformations within Power BI?
I mean, ideally, yes. So the question is, would we prefer to have that modeled upstream kind of in the database and then pull it down into Power BI rather than do that modeling? The answer is yes. As much as you can do upstream of Power BI, the better. So that whenever you get it in there, it's really just about, they've with Power Query, they've created this amazing tool for you to do transformations, to do modeling, right? Which I love. But, most of the time, if you're trying to create a solution, you're trying to create a report for somebody to consume. So, you'd rather not spend a bunch of time doing that modeling in Power BI desktop if you don't have to. So, yeah.
That's what we're doing right now, is a lot of it inside Power BI.
Okay.
We're getting, results that you aren't expecting, because the joins are incorrect. It should be 2 ways or 1 way.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Many to one, and then,
Yeah. Here's another habit. If you can avoid it, I know that Power BI allows many-to-many relationships.
right.
Get out of the habit of having many-to-many relationships. And really, if you can, get out of the habit of having the bi-directional filtering. I mean, that's a great feature, but it can very much lead to unexpected results. So having one-way filtering and, either, your one-to-many relationships as opposed to the many-to-many.
Jeremy covered a lot of what I would say, and I'm definitely open to other people's kind of tips on how do you make a nice Power BI file, one that you're glad you built when you come back to it a year later, right?
Yeah.
Definitely the star schema, and that's a YouTube over to Guy in a Cube. Hopefully, many of you have probably come across that in searching, and Patrick did a good one on why Power BI loves the star schema, just to kind of to justify why we should go to the effort to do it, even when it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to get that perfect little star schema.
Mm-hmm.
One tip that I think is a good one is to try to make sure your last step is always making sure your data types are all, if for some reason they're not already set. If they're coming out of Oracle, they probably will be most of the time. But sometimes if you're connected to Excel or something else, you'll see that like variant data type, or sometimes you have dates coming in as strings, and it's like, oh, I need to fix that. So doing that as the last step is usually a great idea, because then you're just getting it all just set. Yeah, like Jeremy, he covered avoiding the many-to-many relationships and using bidirectional filtering carefully. Like someone explained to me once, and I think it's a pretty good concept, that like if you're using bidirectional filtering, you're pretty much saying that these two tables act like one table. Mm-hmm. So maybe only use it when you're when that where it really is true. And sometimes it's true. It's like a one-to-one relationship, and they really are just like one table. Then again, maybe I should just merge them into one table if that's how they're going to act. So that's why it's sort of like, there are times it's helpful, but probably only in very simple models. That's kind of the way I feel like bidirectional is good.
Yeah.
If I've got like 5 dimensions and 2 facts, then I'm okay. But once I get above about that 7 to 10 level, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to follow the lines anymore.
Yeah.
But one other big tip is like, this just has to do with how Power BI stores its data. It is not at all afraid of a lot of rows. It actually likes a lot of rows. So in some ways, you're better off building like really tall, skinny tables than very, very wide tables. So it can handle millions and millions of rows, but compresses those things down as much as it can to go over that stuff fast. So oftentimes the way of solving something in DAX is you just like start like building these like unions of things, and they're like, oh, this is the solution. And if you look at it, you're like, that doesn't seem like the right solution, and it's not for Excel or SQL Server, but it kind of is for Power BI. So
Yeah.
Anyway, those are some ideas. Yeah. I mean, a really great model has like a measures table. It has descriptions on every single field. That could be great, and format strings, and like if it's really gussied up. But
Yeah, and you kind of, I mean, you always want to start with the end in mind, right? So
Definitely a
who am
data
I building this for? Am I building this for analysts who are really going to dig into it? Or am I just building it for a consumer who is in the C-suite and they just want to see some metrics, right? You can maybe not worry so much about the naming conventions of all of your fields in your model if it's just going out to an executive, because they're not going to look at that anyway. They're going to look at that card on your visualization pane, and that's all they'll be worried about. But again, if it's an analyst or somebody that is going to be using what you create for creating something else, you want to think about the semantics of it. And so again, going back to the naming conventions that you use for your fields, Brent brought up a good point. In the model view in desktop, you can add a description to your fields so that whenever you hover over it, it says, this is what you can say, this is what this field is for, right? Or this is how it's defined, which is a great value add.
I'm having trouble because I'm a Mac user, and I use virtual PCs for Windows, and that's like I can't get it to work here. So I realized I could do it from here. So, any other tips? Are there things you all kind of think of as best practices internally when you're working on a model? Oh, yes, please.
Yeah, so I would add to what both of you have said. You're looking at the end result. Think of your data in like domain groups. Am I writing for ops? Am I writing for accountants? Am I writing? So the domain is really important. And if you leverage the newest features on a Power BI service as opposed to front server, the data sets now become the data mart. You really start with that structure. You're really being IT, engineering. You got lots of reports to write in the end, but you're structuring the data models, not from your desktop Power BI, my isolated little world, but it's you're structuring out on the service what can become in the old days with our business objects, the universe. We're trying to build a universe.
Yeah.
But on the main level perspective, then I think you become not only useful to what your end goal is, right? You're trying to build a report or an analytic or whatever you're doing, maybe even what ifs, which is really sweet today to see that.
It's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I was in that world on mainframes many years ago, so I'm just like going, yeah. I've been in and out of this world probably 5 times in the last 30 years. But anyway, that's my suggestion to what they're down in the tool on your desktop. But I'm telling you, when you're talking about large groups of business individuals, even within the same business group, you either got your property managers who've got the apps, or the accountants that have their GL perspective, the DDAs, whatever it is they're wanting to see accounts do and so forth. You want to think about the data sets you're modeling, and then you'll meet your needs, and then you're going to meet several other groups' needs with the report that you'll.
Yeah. Yeah, just for our online folks, and I hope I summed this up right, but the recommendation was when you're building whatever you're building, try to think about it in terms of your entire data estate. Like, I'm not just building a one-off solution because I got a request. How is what I'm building right now going to fit into the enterprise data assets that we have out in the service? Kind of, is that kind of what we were saying? Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
To run through a couple of other just kind of nice tips to share. It's almost always good to have a date table in your model.
Yeah.
Many of you probably have that already, but having a date table is just almost always handy. I know that Power BI does that neat thing where if you have a date field, it splits out the year and the month and the quarter. And that's fine. I would say for bigger models, that starts to create a lot of storage. And by having a single date table, you can reduce it from creating all of those other tables. So basically, for every date field in your model, it will be creating a whole other table in the background for you if you leave that feature on.
Yeah.
So it's totally fine for a small model. You know, it's handy, it's convenient, it's fine. But if the model's gonna live on for a while, it's a good idea to like have kind of a standard date. Like you can keep it in Excel or anything and just pull in that date table. And then you're always using the same fields and it gets real familiar to people. You can turn the auto date time feature off under the options. Anytime. Not global, but the current file. And it's under data load of all things. There we go. This is the little check mark that will stop it from creating those extra tables. Automatically creates a hidden date table for each field in the model that's a date or a date. So not a big deal unless you have 100 date fields and then you've got 100 extra tables in the background. It's like,
yeah,
do I need that? This also can be turned off to save a little storage space. Yeah, and then to show those descriptions, because they're hidden right now and they should fix this ASAP, but it's a small thing. There are some things that are only available from this view, from the model view. You get more options when you browse fields, and here's where I can put the description. I have no idea what this is. Yeah, basically, I just created this, right? This neither. Something else that you can do there is you can put things in display folders. So
for organizing your model.
Yeah. So I can have a folder called good columns and then one called bad columns. And you can only do that from here in the modeling view right now, because I feel like they have 3 groups of interns working all separate and working on these 3 different screens. Why? Bad columns. And so this is very helpful. I mean, obviously this is a trivial data model, but just wanted to show you where that is inside the tool.
Yeah, now hover over our columns so that we can see our description, go back to our
This one here.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So now there's our description.
You will see that over here as you're trying to build visualization. So
yeah,
that'll tell you what it is and the description. Yeah. Hopefully you had a better description than that. And you can make a measures table in a couple of ways. So many of you probably already do this, but some people like to go into transform data and say enter data and leave it as a blank column. I like to go under modeling and say new table. And you might remember earlier when Thomas was presenting and we noticed that it had the curly braces. I kind of use that to my advantage. And I just make one that's like open curly brace, the number 1, it can be anything, and close curly brace. This literally makes a 1 row, 1 column table with the value 1 in it. And over here on the side, so then boom, here's my measures table. And yeah, it creates a column, it names it value by default, but then you can completely come along and hide that value. And so to me, that's the quickest way to get a measures table, but there are some that do better than that. So this is some of column 1, which probably shouldn't be allowed because it's a text field. But I took it. Then I come along and hide this. I don't know what you're going to do with that Power BI, but okay. If I try to sum up my textual field. Oh, there we go. Now it blows up. Not until you calculate it, does it? Like, no. So, but I should be able to do a max on it or a count or something like that. You can count text fields. It's just really nice to have all your measures in one place. You can also put these in display folders. So like have year over year all grouped up together. Yeah, Boy, that's really nice. If people who come along behind you are like, oh, thank you.
Yep.
So anyway, hopefully that's helpful a little bit. Those are more housekeeping things, but
So that's just for any custom measures you build?
yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes. Sir. Yeah, and I know it will do the auto measures for you too, which are nice. Like I can drag this out here into a chart and it'll do something with it, right? It will count probably by default since it's a text field. I know that's so tiny. What are you doing over here? I put it on the y-axis. I can try to get it in the x-axis, I guess. There we go. Yeah, it needs to make a measure out of it and it counts things like that. I like to create explicit measures for almost everything because it lets me control the format strings and just it's more clear to me. Like this really ought to be a measure called count of column 2. You know what I mean? But to be explicit, it's usually better, but this can work. It's good. Any other tips? Brett, I know you've been doing this for a couple of years.
Well, those are the big ones for me.
Okay.
The calendar table and the measures table.
Okay.
I've been kind of switched to doing that exclusively, unless it's something, real small and simple, but that helps a lot. Because then I've also gotten into like nesting measures, and then, you can kind of go back and change one of the original ones and close all the way through to the kind of the master version. So
Having like a base measures that this is the sum of this column, and then if you need to go back and change it, you can. Sum of some other column that changes it all the way downstream.
Yeah.
That's a good question, though, Kevin. Thanks. It's a really good question. We keep learning things from each other. One of our user groups, someone showed me the practice of like, he liked to put his dimension tables up here and fact tables down below. So all the arrows were pointing down. So it was literally like a drill down type of experience, visually. So some people like to do that. So that's kind of a cool idea. Another way of organizing it, right? Oh, it can get so disorganized. You saw even Thomas's simple F1 examples, even that had lines everywhere, and that's like a demo. It's not even real business data. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Other challenges? These were good. You guys you weren't here at the beginning, but we were writing down. Okay, you got it. Yeah. Any Power BI challenges you want to share? Oh, you did. I'm so sorry. Oh, so sorry.
A while back.
Okay.
The challenge that we run into is that we're working with highly spatial data. Well, not a small amount of it. So mapping up to maybe 20,000 or 30,000 well points in a given area. And the challenge that we ran into is even with the paid version of ArcGIS, you're not going to be able to map all the Power BI and our users. That's just one of the key features that we cannot live without in our reporting. So we found that Mapbox tool works really well, except for that it's not a Microsoft certified visual.
Oh.
And so you can't publish it on the cloud as a result. And so we've actually had to revert back to the on-premise server for at least some of our toolkits.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can't, they won't even allow, even if you turn on the settings and oh.
There's a real structure challenge.
So Brett, I'm looking at Brett again, because we were talking about Spotfire earlier. Like, do you think that it would handle the 20,000 points? Yeah. Spotfire is fine. Yeah. You can't do the cost on it. How about 2,000 points? Have they be happy with 2,000 points? Because it'd be fine. Yeah.
We have other tools. Want to stick with Power BI for all of our tools and do it and not program something. And like we have our Studio Connect now. So we'll likely be programming toolkits through that and using the mapping availability in ARC. But that takes a lot of hands-on management where Power BI could be passed down to other individuals and let them kind of self-manage the tool. That's a little bit more user-friendly. So
Yeah.
really, it's more of a business challenge in a way.
So you said that you have tried ArcGIS
Yeah.
and that didn't work for you either.
No, it's feature of just it's actually it's a Microsoft limitation, it's Power BI limitation of visualizing those points
Oh,
within Power BI. It's not a, we can build these maps in ArcGIS all day long. And in fact, they do have an online version of Power BI that's some of the data analytics tool that they have access, or you could have access to if you purchase it. It's just, you had to tell a user, well, if you want that information, you could go over to Power BI, but if you really want this, you're gonna go log into ArcGIS.
Yeah.
Here, and there's not just one streamlined solution.
gotcha. Hmm.
I would love to solve that problem for you. I don't know. I don't.
And that's why I emailed you
Yes.
a while back, Brent, about that.
I'm
seeing
sorry
if
that I
anybody
forgot
had
about that.
Played around with ArcGIS, to the extent where they knew
Oh, yeah.
any ways around those limitations, and it is what it is.
I hope I responded to you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay. I was like, I think I was ringing a bell now. Yeah.
Yes, it's just Power BI.
It's like, sorry. The Mapbox visual is very cool.
It is.
They really ought to get it certified because it's really cool. Like it can do a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, if anybody has any whatsoever, we will praise you.
I think, yeah, because I know I used it in a report and I know it was running in the service, but maybe it was before certification was even a thing. Is that, maybe that was like 2018 or 19. So maybe that's why it worked. Cause I was like, why did that work? Like, so they have to get it in their local desktop file.
Mapbox has a better visual for Power BI
Oh,
than
yeah.
GIS.
Oh, yeah, it is better. It's so cool.
Really powerful.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have way more points that we can map on it, but it just cannot be published.
One idea might be like, could you do the Power BI desktop, but is it like live connected to data out in the cloud, the data set out in the cloud? Where they didn't actually have to download the whole PBIX and have the whatever megabytes it is. I mean, I think the visual would work then, right? But I'm only saving some megabytes that's all I'm, yeah, it's
So,
not helping much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's something else that you might be able to do. And this was a feature that was just announced in November. You can have your PBIX in a SharePoint folder now, and that might work. I'm not sure. Rather than, publishing the report to the service, you put it in SharePoint and they access it there. I don't know if it would work or not, but it's something to look into.
SharePoint is a location now because we have, you're gonna go to Power BI for this, you're gonna go to our Connect for this, and so it's like, you just might as well manage that all through SharePoint. But yeah, so I guess that. Good idea.
Look at that. Let me share. Jeremy, is this what you're referring to here of, I saw it in the October announcement, actually. Oh, man, come on. What is not happening here? I guess this is that OneDrive SharePoint integration, including save and share from desktop.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah.
We've done sufficient testing and will roll out to other Office rings, which will not be until 2023. Okay. Our SharePoint integration. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I'm not sure what they're gonna do with that exactly. I can see how a lot of people might be trying to get around the, needing a pro license to share things. So I don't know exactly how that's gonna work, but I just remembered reading about that in the October release or whatever.
Mapping does become a challenge. It's not as good as other tools with the maps.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's mostly fine, but then oil and gas, it's just that's a whole different world. Yeah.
What other questions do we have? Guys?
Good. Mine was trying to get 8 million different data sources
Do we have anybody online?
Yeah, I haven't heard much from them at this time. They have no challenges. They're fine.
Tables and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you know if there's any way to activate or deactivate where a visualization is hidden based on a conditional?
That's a great question. Conditionally hide and show visuals. Sorry, go ahead.
Case in point, in one of my reports that I have in a test environment, I have a flow visualization that refreshes the data set.
Mhm.
And I don't want that to show if it doesn't need to be refreshed, right? So if this has been refreshed today, don't show visualization. However, if it has not refreshed today, do show the visualization.
Yeah, that's a new one.
And it's not really even an opacity issue, it's more of a
That's what I was gonna look
whether or
at.
not it's a hidden or shown selection.
And
So having a conditional hide or unhide for a visualization. Case in point being, I have a flow visualization or Power Automate visualization that will refresh my data set with, and I don't want my users to just click every 5 minutes on that thing. So if I can have it only show the visualization when it needs to show up, say that it hasn't refreshed for that day, it'll show up. But if it hasn't refreshed for that day, it won't show that option. If it were an issue of opacity, then they'd still be able to click and 100% or a 0% opacity visualization, which could still be a problem.
Mhm.
But it's completely, then they can't even click it very tiny, but.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, if you hide over it, then they can't click it. It's not interactive anymore.
So, yeah, and you're wanting to enable them to run that flow if it hasn't refreshed, to refresh that data.
Right, essentially the idea is to, as with most things, eliminate any sort of human interaction.
Yeah,
That's
Yeah.
possible.
yeah. That is a good one. I have not ever tried or thought about trying to conditionally show or hide a visual on a page. Based on the value of another field. It seems like you should be able to do that, though.
If you're talking about a page, you're talking about objects on the page.
Right.
What I'm seeing, I'm hearing him say an object, and I'm thinking, okay, multi-card or cards, I think you could do more programming, right? And this wasn't one, I went through that, I'm thinking, not too much space, because you do that with filters. Talking about objects. And so your object has to be a matrix or a data sheet or chart or what, or could be a display of a value, which you use a card. Which is it?
And
Or any of it.
well, there's an actual visualization called the Power Automate visualization. It's not a card or a slicer or,
Oh, okay.
or anything like that. That's the category.
Sending objects?
I think so.
So it's called what again?
It's been a couple of years, I think. It used to be Microsoft Flow. And then we changed the thing to Automate. And you can make them visuals in your Power BI. Okay, there, top, it says Power Automate.
So at the top of the visualizations pane there, you're on the second.
Yes, I'm sorry, over here.
Yeah, there you go.
Mhm. Sorry, I was trying to look for any little F functions in that visual to let you
Oh.
show or hide stuff, but it doesn't do that, does it?
The reason where I went was, okay, with SharePoint, and then putting objects on the page, right? I would program for that, right? That when you're launching or when it's refreshing that page. Yeah, easily done. So I said, okay, I'll redo that here. township level, without the capacity view.
Yeah, and really it would be essentially based on, the field value within a SQL query. When it was last refreshed.
Oh.
Yeah,
Read the time. Oh,
it says, okay, is that time today?
yeah.
If not, disable it. And I know that in the view tab on the ribbon, there's the selection menu, which allows you to hide or unhide specific objects.
Right, the selection pane. Okay, gotcha. Mhm. So we could turn it off here, but you can't control this with DAX conditionally.
Conditionally.
Yeah.
At least I'm
Do-
not aware.
Do your buttons, if you have a button up here, can you create logic for when a button is shown or not?
That's exactly what I was kind of driving at. Like, could we change its visibility to be conditional? And then have its action be a web URL that kicks the Power Automate off.
Right, or just if I click the button, it's a bookmark that shows, so the button only shows if the condition is met. And if I click the button, it shows the Power Automate visual, like a bookmark
So you
type
can make it
thing.
2 clicks. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be 2 clicks.
So you could make this conditional and have it turn white so no one could see the button. Pretty hokey workarounds for sure.
Yeah, it is a
You
little
could- You
bit.
could use like we were thinking, have the Power Automate have a trigger that is receive an HTTP request. And it will generate a URL that anytime that URL is hit, it will trigger that Power Automate. And then you could have a button whose action was to call that Power Automate, which is it's not as smooth as what you kind of have right now, but a button that says refresh. And then the button has more conditional options on it that you could use to conditionally show and hide it.
So how about this for a solution to the Gordian knot? We just say it refreshes at this time every day. Can you tell your users that?
Well,
What if it
yeah, but
fails?
if there's some sort of error
Okay.
that causes it not to refresh. And that's currently
Okay.
what we have, but some days we'll have.
There's,
that
okay,
issue.
there's an error and it's not refreshed.
Right.
Gotcha.
Does it show its last refresh time? I mean, do you display that on there?
I believe so, and
Okay.
I'm newer to the team,
Yeah.
so, I'm not as familiar with all of our tables. But this is an issue that one of our team members has expressed. And we don't want to be able to provide our users with that option
Right.
all the time.
Sense.
Called at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Do you get notifications when the refresh fails?
I think he does.
Okay. I wonder if there is like a retry mechanism that they're like, or I don't know. Does he have to like do something to get it to work, or does he just kick it off again?
Definitely right now because we don't want other people to have access to that. He'll get the notification through email.
Mhm.
And he's got a Power Automate button that refreshes all of it. So,
That's a cool solution, by the way, to put that Power Automate thing there. I mean, that's neat that you can kick that off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's been considered by Microsoft.
Yeah, yeah. I wonder if the visual got updated with more conditional settings, because, I mean, you guys could, you probably have used those before, but there are, oftentimes these little FXs appear, right?
Right.
And then, yeah. So if Power Automate, just if the visual had those, then that could be easy. And you're completely right. Like, they need to find a way to have just the visibility on off in this setting panel that we can turn on and off. Like, it seems very possible to do, but
Mhm.
you can only like set them at design time. You can't set them at runtime. And so then you have to use bookmarks to control it, and it's really hard to Yeah, it's just hard.
Yeah, so the wonky workaround would be a combination of bookmarks and buttons, because you can set conditional logic on those.
Power BI.
That's a
The answer is
weird
always
one,
like, oh, there's a way. It's really hard, but there's always a way. Except for displaying 2,000 or 20,000 points on a map. There's not a way to do it. Probably is like, I mean, there is like if you haven't downloaded the Power BI desktop file. But by the way, I just came across like organizational visuals. Have you ever looked at those before? Have you tried adding Mapbox as an organizational visual? Okay. Oh, you can't? Oh, it's an on-prem server. It's not. Oh, okay, I see.
Well, yeah, you had to do on-prem.
Yeah, to make that happen. There might be an option for the cloud now, maybe. Okay. Well, this is 2:30. You guys have done great. Thank you. We certainly would be, yeah, just thought we'd kind of leave the rest of the time flexible for social time, getting to know each other. And if other challenges come up, we're glad to talk
Yeah.
about those. And I mean, yeah, thank you for coming today.
Absolutely, yeah.
Let's see, I guess any closing remarks, I think on the, next, we'll try to start meeting quarterly. So sometime in the first quarter, 23, we'll meet in Oklahoma City. I'm in Oklahoma City, although I did grow up in Broken Arrow, so I have Tulsa bona fides in case anybody, cares. I was a VA Tiger. We had met at this reminded me that we had met at Meridian Technology Center, which is a very neat technology school in Stillwater. They built a campus in Guthrie. I know that's the hopping town of Guthrie. It's like 20 minutes north of OKC, but you can get there either way from Tulsa. And I'm thinking about contacting you and asking if we could use that facility. The one in Stillwater, it really was nice. It was like this. They had everything just right that we needed. So as far as other resources, always appreciate your feedback about ways we can make the events better. I mean, hopefully you have my contact info, or there's info@firstlightanalytics.com. That will be a good place to send feedback. And other topics, I think we need to talk about data marts and metrics and all those things deeper. I also had Taguma say she had a presentation. Taguma is going to help us lead the Power BI user group for Jeremy and I, but she just had a baby, and so she's not getting out and about yet. So she wasn't here today, but hopefully as the year goes on, that she'll be able to join us and present as well. We'll stop there. Thanks, guys, for your time today, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, yeah. Sure.
Those notes that you were taking, will those be available?
I will get those down. Yes, sir. That was sort of just an on the fly thing, but I will get those saved right now. And I want to ask my team about the Power Automate thing. That's true.
So you looked at me and asked me
You know,
like,
right.
Raised the last issue. I would like thoughts on, but other than kind of, we make heavy use of those. And we also have, we access data. And they might be built to.
No, look at this. Or something unproductive.
That'd be productive.
They think you're here all day, right? Isn't that the idea? Oh, let me leave this meeting.
Well, this is why you come with your boss, so, yeah, which is great, because he's right here, so. No, I was just saying, I don't feel guilty when I have to be back in office. The boss is back in office.
Oh, good. Yeah. So I was thinking like, this is an all day event. Yeah.
You guys should just come down to the tower downtown.
I know, right? We'll just have you come.
There's 8 of us are at the tower over here today.
I'd be all for it. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
I guarantee you have a larger.
Do they host
attendance.
outside groups sometimes? Would they?
There's a big training room down at the.
Yeah, they renovated the tower downtown, and so there's some really nice shared space there now.
Okay. Well, we'll try it next time. Sounds like fun. Thanks. I don't know. You guys were probably next on our list.
Yeah, actually, BTC might be better than the tower.
I think that's what we